Yeah, this whole setup is gonna have to be like different because this is truly yes. A few weeks ago, we shared a video of a camping trip that was supposed to be a series, turned into the shakedown trip we didn't do, and it became a story about the lessons learned on our first overlanding trip. If you want to check it out, I will leave the link to the video up here. In this video, I wanted to talk through some of the results from that trip, what worked, what didn't work, and then the solutions that I've come up with for some of the issues that I've run into. Okay, first, let's talk about storage, because this is probably our largest pain point when it comes to overlanding right now. What worked? First of all, the deck system worked fantastic. I was gifted this system by didn't't last year, and I have no regrets about taking up a lot of my bed space with this system. I do have some tweaks to make to the drawer system to make it a little bit more convenient, so I'm not making multiple trips from the back seat of the truck to the back of the bed. I need to rework the drawer storage to just be a little bit more usable. Since that trip, I've actually added more dividers to the drawers, and I've also picked up an additional toolbox, which I'm going to build out into a smaller camp kitchen, but we'll talk about that in a different video once I put that into practice and see if it actually works. What didn't work? Well, if you watched the video, you saw that the back seats got absolutely chaotic, and the biggest issue here was that things were piling up on top of each other. So my solution going forward is going to be to DIY a platform for the back of the truck. Now, I do use my back seats, so I didn't want to delete those seats and put in a whole thing. So I'm going to build some sort of temporary removable solution, and that video is to come. Let's talk about stuff when you're truck camping, car camping. We have a lot of these little accessories that tend to float around. What worked with stuff? Well, I really liked this Sitio crate. I actually used it for a coffee setup that was far too big for this trip. I'm gonna rework this, strip that down, and this box is gonna turn into a dedicated pantry where we're gonna store all of our dry foods. And I really like this box because it has these dividers to keep things organized, and it also has this bamboo cutting board that sits on top. Because if we're working at the tailgate, it tends to get a little bit dirty, so I could just take that cutting board off the box and put it right on the tailgate and work on that. Now, I also have an additional smaller cutting board, and I'll use this for cutting up fruits and vegetables. This is basically just a nice work surface. The second thing that works really well are these nomadic 40-liter duffel bags. If you've been around here a while, you know that I absolutely love these bags for any type of travel like this. We use them on all of our helicopter trips. They fit a lot of stuff, they're water resistant, and they can be worn like a backpack. And then one more thing that I found worked really good are our tech bags fit perfectly in the doors of my truck. Now, I have a wandered medium-sized tech bag. Chris has a small one. And inside these, we keep our air plugs, extra batteries for our phones, headlamps, things that we need when we're going to bed that we can easily take this tech pouch out into the tent, and it has everything that we're gonna need for nighttime. And we kind of have our designated door sides. No matter who's driving, my stuff always goes on the driver's side and Chris's goes on the passenger side. What didn't work when it came to stuff? Well, we took a ton of blankets, probably too many. As first-time overlanders, we weren't really sure how warm the tent was going to be, considering it was going to be hovering around 5 degrees Celsius outside overnight. Even though our sleeping bags are rated for 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I was still worried that we were gonna be cold, especially because I'm typically a cold sleeper. So I brought our down winter bags, I brought our summer bags as extra insulation, I brought our wool blanket, which if you wanna check that out, I'll leave it in the description box below. And I also brought a heated blanket. Now, the heated blanket was an absolute game changer, and we will definitely be keeping that in the kit from now on. We just plug that directly into the anchor battery and let that run overnight. I have been considering swapping our 2 sleeping bags out for a single camp quilt that is rated for 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, but that might be my solution. Let me know in the comments below if you use a camp quilt. I've been looking at Aeronaut, and I've been looking at Enlightened Equipment. So if you use one of those, let me know if you like it. And if you have another suggestion, leave it in the comments below. One of the other things that I was considering is installing a cargo net in the back seat that suction cups to the windows. I think this will be helpful to get some of the small things like puffy jackets and pillows kind of up into the ceiling, and so there's not so much stuff kind of stacked and floating around in the backseat. One more thing that did not work but is kind of a necessity when we're camping is the camp toilet and the pop-up tent took up way too much space in the back seats. Now, we like to travel with this because I just like the comfort of having a toilet, and I'm a woman and I get a period. Let's get over the weirdness about periods. They happen. It just gives me a little bit more comfort when we're out there in the woods to be using the bathroom and dealing with menstruation. Well, I like to carry the toilet and the pop-up tent, especially when we're in hip camps where there are no bathrooms and they specifically require you to bring your own toilet. Or if we are crown land camping in the woods, it's just nice to have. So my solution to getting the toilet out of the back of the truck is by storing it in a trasharoo bag. Now that toilet and tent fit perfectly in a trasharoo, and those are usually meant to be carried on the back tire of a truck. I don't have a back tire, so I'll be mounting this to the inside of my bed rack, and that will live outside the truck. I'm not too concerned if they do get a little bit damp if it's raining. Nice thing about this is I can also store Lysol wipes, extra toilet paper in a dry bag, and just keep all of that together outside of the truck, and that keeps anything that might be potentially messy away from our overnight bags and our sleeping bags. The last thing that was kind of difficult when it comes to stuff is that the ladder has to go in the back of the truck. If you have any suggestions on how else I could deal with this ladder, let me know in the comments below. Found these headrest hooks off Amazon. And so I plan to just mount these to the back seats, hang up my ladder, and just kind of get it kind of attached to the back of the seat to get that up off the floor so it's not jammed up, and it just kind of hangs out, sits there, and doesn't fall over when we take our overnight bags out. So the concept works, but in practice, we'll see if it actually works once I take that out and we do a couple of nights with that setup. Food. What worked? Nothing. What didn't work? Everything. The two things that did work were our breakfast burritos were delicious, and our pizzas worked out pretty well. The whole food situation was a little bit of a disaster, and I'm gonna tell you why. The biggest pain point for us was the cooler. We spent the entire late summer, early fall camping on our land, and we used coolers the whole time, and it was fine. However, once we transitioned into that fall season when it was a little bit colder, that's where our issues started popping up. I found myself drinking frozen Gatorade at camp when it was 6 degrees Celsius outside before bed. But it wasn't just the frozen drinks, it was also things like lettuce and herbs. These things are super delicate, so when they're in a cooler against ice, then they tend to wilt or get kind of sloppy and sludgy, which is not great if you're planning on cooking at camp, or you wanna put together a sandwich, or you have a specific recipe you wanna use. The coolers became a really big hassle because they ended up either ruining food that we wanted to make, or we couldn't actually drink the things that we wanted to drink at camp. I was putting off purchasing a fridge for the truck because I was scared that I was falling into that gear trap of like, you need this gigantic list of things. So I waited on the fridge. My solution to the cooler issue is I picked up a Dometic CX, whatever the number is, 35 fridge and battery system for the truck. Now I haven't used this yet on a trip, but I did set it up in the kitchen and do some tests, and it ran off the battery for 48 hours. I will keep you updated on how that fridge integrates into our system and whether it was worth it, and if I made the mistake on buying a fridge that was too large or too small. I'm a little worried it might be too big. I'm hoping it's going to be perfect, but time will tell. The other thing that we struggle with when it comes to food is lunch. Sandwiches seem like the obvious choice, but sometimes, I don't know, the idea of making a sandwich on the road gets me flustered. If you have any go-to simple lunches, let me know in the comments. One of the things that we find is that we're driving for a long period of time. We don't have the ingredients to either make lunch, or we don't have anything pre-prepared. And then we are looking for takeout, and then oftentimes we're in remote areas. So time passes maybe too long where we haven't gotten a proper meal. And then, you know, people start to get cranky and really hungry. Lunch is something that we need to kind of work on. Last thing on my list to discuss is tech. So what worked? We have an Anker Powerhouse 545, I think it's called. We purchased this 3 years ago to do helicopter camping, to charge our batteries while we were filming series. This has been an integral part of our camp kit since then. We use this on this trip to power our heated blanket, as well as plug in lights while we were at camp if they needed to be charged. What didn't work? After each night at camp, we needed to plug in all of our battery operated lamps and lanterns. So we need to figure out a little bit better of a way to charge all of our tech while we're driving. So I have a solution for that. I think I'm going to build a charge station for the truck, but I haven't figured out exactly how yet, so stay tuned. I'm gonna make a separate video on that. We're getting into spring now, which is really exciting. We're gonna get to use the truck a lot more. I have a lot of things to work out before our next large trip, but I think I have a couple of good solutions. I'm really looking forward to trying out that fridge and getting more into cooking while we're at camp. Thank you for coming along on this journey as we, get way more into vehicle-based adventure filmmaking. And if you're curious about what happened to the helicopter, well, you can watch the entire series where we brought it to California. We'll link it up here. This is what it currently looks like. Completely stripped down, just the body. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of an update soon on when that's gonna be back in the air and when we're gonna be taking it back to Buffalo. Okay, thank you so much for watching. See you next weekend for another one. My hands are so dry because of winter. They look like 80 years old.